Today is Wednesday, July 29th, 2020. It is about 5:35 p.m. I call the City of Homestead Special Call City Council meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll. I'm not hearing anyone.
Councilwoman Bailey?
Present.
Councilman Ross?
Here.
Councilman Fletcher?
Here.
Councilwoman Avila?
Here.
Councilman Shelley?
Here.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers?
Here.
Mayor Lawson?
And I'm here also. Thank you. Let me go back and catch up with the housekeeping and pursuant to Executive Order 20-69 issued by Governor DeSantis and the City of Homestead local state of emergency due to COVID-19. This will be a virtual special call meeting. The virtual meeting can be viewed live on the City Access channel or live stream at cityofhomestead.com/public meeting. The city will be accepting public comments as part of the virtual meeting, which can be emailed to public comments at cityofhomestead.com. Public comments are limited to 300 words per comment. Public comments should include your name, address, and your comment, and can be submitted up to until 30 minutes after the end of the virtual special call meeting and will be included in the minutes. And I am only at this point aware that we have received one submission of public comments. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Our first item of business is tab 1, car number 2945, a notice of Harris Act claim. This item was deferred from our last regular council meeting. Mr. White, are you ready to give us a little update before we open the conversation?
Yes, Mayor. As you just referenced, this is a continuation of our discussion from last week's City Council meeting concerning the Council's response to the notice of Harris Act claims that were submitted to the city on behalf of the Alger family. As you may recall from the meeting last week, we are currently in a 90-day window that's created under the Harris Act statute. That's the period from when we receive the notice until when the Algers can file their Harris Act claim. And in that period, it requires the city to consider and take some affirmative action as to various settlement options outlined under the statute. That includes providing relief to the Algers or alternatively providing no change to the action of the city. At the last meeting, there was a vote taken by the council to proffer a written settlement agreement to the Algers regarding legislatively amending our regulations to restore 1 per 5 on the Algers APV property, and that failed. Subsequent to that, there was a motion, a second, and a vote to defer any further discussion action until subsequent special call meeting this week. So that brings us to this evening. And I'd like to mention to Mayor and Council that in the intervening days since our meeting last week, I've had the opportunity to discuss a little bit further and explore some potential settlement options with the Alger family legal representative, Miss Amanda Quirk-Hand. And based on those conversations, the Algers are in agreement to toll or stay the time frames under the Harris Act as it relates to the city's obligations to respond and the Algers' ability to file the Harris Act litigation for a 90-day period that would allow the city and the Algers the ability to sit down and to negotiate a settlement agreement to hopefully an amicable solution. The general framework and terms of the settlement agreement that I discussed with Ms. Corkhand would provide, and the Algers are in agreement to this, that the city would legislatively restore the 1 per 5 on the Algers property. And once that's restored, the Algers agree that they would commit to a 3-year time frame in which the HARB would have the ability to purchase the residential rights pursuant to the REPI program. That REPI program, for the audience, is the Department of Defense Readiness and Environmental Protection Integration Program. It's a REPI program. The details and specifics of that process will need to be fleshed out. That's why we're seeking, and the Algers agreed to, a 90-day time frame to allow to work out those details. It's my understanding from conversations that I've had with Councilman Shelley that, as well as correspondence recently received from Larry Ventura on behalf of the Air Base this afternoon, that the HARB is not in opposition to this concept and is willing to work with the city on a solution. So with that, Mayor, I'll take any questions that you or the council may have.
Thank you, Mr. White. Any questions or comments from council?
Mayor, if I may?
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. So, as well, having done further review of the ordinances and the plan updates and my understanding that there's also a 2020 AQs in the works, I'm okay with the idea of doing the update to the AQs to incorporate all the recommendations, and as part of that, grandfathering the rights back for the Algers property as part of the overall new ordinance that we would pass in relation to the AQs. Now, if we can't get that done in a quick amount of time, and the tolling runs out, then I'm still okay with moving forward with the legislative change because of essentially the first right of refusal that's being offered to the HARB, so that they can get the right purchase through the REPI program. I think that's a win-win, and I'm very happy to hear that there's posture to move forward with that agreement. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council? Let me ask a question to Mr. White and maybe counsel for the potential plaintiffs who want to weigh in as well. Mr. White, you put it in terms of a sale of rights under the federal military installation protection program, for lack of my being able to recall the exact program. But are there not other programs that maybe these property owners can avail themselves of? And I guess what I'm getting at is I don't know that we want to, maybe you didn't intend to, because sometimes we attorneys speak in shorthand, expressly limit that ultimate settlement to reference to that one program. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, you are correct in that there might be other options available. The one that comes to mind is the county's purchase of development rights program that they have, which is an ag preservation program that the Alger family could pursue. Certainly, I don't think that we have any problem or issue with that. But I think in my discussions with Ms. Quirk, the opportunity was going to be, or they were in agreement with the opportunity to allow the base to seek these rights first before they would entertain or go to the county. But that's certainly something that can be discussed and worked out.
Yeah, and again, thinking out loud, and we definitely have to create some record here. You know, I guess conceptually, most of us, I think, recognize that it would be appropriate for the federal government to buy these rights to protect its installation on the basis of who's really being benefited. But the flip side of that is that it seems that, I don't know at what, I guess it's fair to say that throughout the litigation and up until our meeting last week, the United States was taking the position that the rights were extinguished years ago, and I don't want any of us to run into the situation where someone interjects and says, wait a minute, we're now admitting that these property owners had development rights when there was a contrary position taken throughout the litigation.
Mr. Mayor, if I may respond?
Sure, thank you, Ms. Hand.
Yes. As I've discussed, particularly with James White, we all recognize that the devil is going to be in the details with this negotiation. So, to the extent that those rights, that the REPI rights might be exclusive, or that there might be other parties that want to participate because there's a lot of 50-50 matching or other ways to fund those purchases. Also, the mechanics of how the purchase would work, the appraisal, the time frames, all these things would have to be drilled down and addressed. But, from the perspective of the elders, they are willing to say, okay, time out on the Burkett-Harris claim mutually for both sides for 90 days, and to give the parties the opportunity to see if this is a possibility and bring it back. And the time frame that they are contemplating is more than reasonable. It'd be 3 years that they would not pull a building permit to give that window to see if the REPI funds or other funds, as may be negotiated, would be available. In that context, though, as part of the negotiation, we would respectfully request some fresh eyes on this matter as part of the negotiation, because as you just mentioned, this litigation has gone on for 10 years. Carla Alger personally participated in the JLUS since 2006, so this is a 14-year matter. It's steeped in history for the family, but also for the other parties involved. And, there is a lot of personal investment. So at this time, we would respectfully request that people who have not been involved yet are designated as those point people for the negotiation of a detailed settlement agreement that could be brought back to this council.
All right. Well, thank you. I just didn't want us to be tripped up with those details either. And, I like the suggestion that, perhaps we put, some new sets of eyes from all sides of the table on this to get it wrapped up to everybody's satisfaction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'm happy to volunteer myself to participate in that if you'd like.
Okay.
If I may respectfully respond, it has come to our attention that Councilwoman Avila's husband does work at the base, so we would respectfully request a more disinterested parties such as maybe Councilman Fletcher.
Thank you. Councilwoman?
I have no opposition to me not being the person, but I do understand that Councilman Fletcher is a friend of the family of the Algers, and so perhaps maybe someone like Councilman Shelley, who has very deep knowledge of the base and this case as well. I would recommend him.
Mayor, can I chime in here?
Sure, Councilman.
Yeah, so having been involved in some of these cases in this litigation where a liaison or a point person has been appointed by the council, I don't know that that's always worked out all that well. And speaking for myself as well, I mean, I've been involved in this case in some extent, at least, heavily in the beginning, and then less so over the last, couple of years as this thing kind of laid fallow. But I find that one of the problems is that if you appoint a point person, the rest of the council kind of backs off and becomes not disinterested, but less involved. And in this case, there's a lot of intricacies, there's a lot of details that are ongoing that I think, here we are 10 years later, and there's a lot of my colleagues, granted some of them are new and there's been some changeover, but at the same time, there's a lot to get caught up on. And so decisions are made, discussions are had, and I think it's better in this particular case, again, because I think we're close, hopefully, to the end of either getting a resolution one way or another, that rather than appoint a single person as the point person, I still think this is something that, as a body, we should all be engaged in, we should all be getting information from, we should all be getting feedback to our attorneys and to staff, whether it be in a public meeting or one-on-one sessions, versus having a one person where all the information is flowing in and out of. So that'd be my recommendation. I appreciate the recommendation by the councilwoman to maintain me as the point. But I think that from my experience, both with this case and other cases in which the council has kind of put somebody in charge of being a liaison, I don't know that it's always been that effective or worked that well. I think it's better to kind of have office alone and really have staff be designated as the main people who have the discussions, attorney to attorney and staff to staff. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Shelley, and I certainly see your point. And as you were talking, I was thinking, certainly staff working, some member of staff working with our attorneys at the table is going to be necessary. The one distinction, though, that comes to my mind between the conduct of the last almost 10 years of litigation and the upcoming was that I think it's fairly well accepted that at least as to the city's position in the litigation, we were more of an observer, and that the Alger family and the United States government were the active participants, and we weren't necessarily, at least from a council perspective, intricately involved. It may be wise at some point, if necessary, to come back and revisit having a council member as the designated point person. But certainly, I agree with Councilman Shelley that in this situation, we're probably going to need more frequent one-on-one updates so that we're all on the same page when we come to a public meeting, or all have the same background of information, not on the same page, all have the same background of information when it's time to finally discuss and approve this in a public forum. So that may be the way to go at this point from the city's perspective, is have a designated staff person to be the one that's our point person for these discussions. Mr. Fletcher, anything?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarification, I'm friends with a lot of people throughout this community, and no closer than most other kinships through knowing individuals through the Alger family. No special interest, just to clarify. I agree with Councilman Shelley. I do, and yourself as well. I believe that we need to look at this as a body, as a whole. Again, rather than having that information funneled through one council member, at least at this point in time, maybe we can look at that further if this continues on for a bigger length of time with some more in-depth issues.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Now that Councilman Shelley mentioned it, I really do like the all-hands-on-deck approach. It forces all of us to remain engaged in the process, as well as opposed to wait for information to be filtered to us. So I am amenable to all of us getting the information at one time, with staff being the point person, and then having those one-on-one conversations with us. Great suggestion, Councilman Shelley.
Okay. Councilman Roth?
I'll just say I concur with not having anyone from council at this point appointed to be a point person. I think the staff and the attorneys from all parties understand the direction that I think all of us want to go into, and I think they're capable of handling this for us and then updating us as needed. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Baylor?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. I would love to stay engaged in this all as well. So I agree with my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Councilman Avila?
I agree 100%.
Thank you. So I guess I would look to Mr. White. I guess, so on the record here, what do we need to do in terms of, do we need to just acknowledge that a 90-day tolling from today has been offered for the purpose of going back to the table? Or do we need to take?
Yes, Mayor. I would request that the council approve or direct us that they're in agreement with a 90-day tolling at this juncture, so that we can sit down and we can negotiate the terms of a settlement agreement with the Alger family and other interested parties, and bring something back for your further consideration.
All right, thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
Stated.
All right, Councilwoman Avila has made that motion,
I second.
and we have a second from the Vice Mayor. Anything further from council? All right, I know that Mr. Ventura wanted to make a statement on the record, and before we have the vote, I'd like to extend the opportunity to him to read the statement that falls within the 300-word parameter. Are you on, Mr. Ventura?
I am on. I appreciate that. The Air Force has placed its comments on file with the city, and as such, the Air Force has no further comment at this time, other than to say we are willing to work with all parties to work out an amicable solution. That's all we have at this time. Thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Ventura. Appreciate it. All right. So it's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk?
Councilwoman Bailey?
Yes.
Councilman Ross?
Yes.
Councilman Fletcher?
Yes.
Councilman Shelley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fairclough Staggers?
Yes.
Mayor Losner?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That concludes our noticed business. Do either the manager or the attorneys have anything further?
Nothing further from me, Mayor.
Thank you.
Nothing from me either, Mayor.
Thank you. Council?
Mayor, if I may,
Yes, Mr. Ross.
I just want to say that it's been a pleasure to have this discussion at 5:30 versus 11 p.m. at night. And I think that moving forward, we will be able to get to an amicable solution for all the parties that are involved. And thank you for allowing us to have this special call meeting.
Yes, amen to that, Mr. Ross. Amen.
Amen from me as well.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.